The planet Gravos 9 was not a place for peace. It was hot, crowded, and filled with every kind of criminal, smuggler, and slaver in the outer rings. Here, everything had a price, even people. And today, something rare was being sold, something dangerous. In the heart of the trade district stood a large iron cage. Inside it stood a green-skinned alien girl, tall and proud, her silver-white hair dirty and tangled. Her torn cloth barely covered her body, but she didn't flinch or hide. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was staring down every creature, who passed her with eyes full of fire. A tag hung from her cage. Lot 017, species, Valari, condition, aggressive, do not approach around her. Other cages were already empty. Weak aliens had been bought for labor, trade, or worse. But she remained. No, one dared claim her. She had already broken a traitor's jaw, bit the fingers of a guard, shouted in a language no one understood. "This one's not safe," a merchant whispered. "Too wild. Not worth the risk." But someone watched her silently, a human. His name was Jack Rayner, a quiet man with scars on his hands and a military ID chip in his coat. He had been to many war zones, survived many battles, and seen many types of fear. But this girl, she wasn't afraid, she was waiting, and Jack could feel it. Something about her didn't belong here. Not in a cage. Not on a planet like this. He stepped closer. The merchant blocked his way. "Don't bother. She won't obey. She's cursed. Some say, even tried to choke herself on chains last night." "I'm not here for obedience," Jack said calmly. "You gonna buy her?" The merchant laughed. "She'll bite your face off before the ship leaves port." Jack looked into the cage. The alien girl met his eyes. No words, no movement. But something passed between them. Recognition, pain, and challenge. "How much?" Jack asked. The merchant blinked. "You serious?" "How much for her?" "Same as a combat drone, 5,000 credits." "Done." Gasps filled the market. Some laughed, others stepped back. Even the girl narrowed her eyes. Confused, Jack didn't flinch. He paid. The lock was released. The gate opened. She stepped out, but didn't run, didn't attack. She stood in front of him like a soldier facing a commander. Jack held out a small blanket. "You're free now." She didn't take it. "You're not my master," she hissed. "I'm not trying to be." "Then why did you buy me?" Jack paused. "Because no one else saw what I did. You're not a slave. You're a fighter. And I think someone's trying to erase that." She said nothing, but she took the blanket and walked beside him. As they left the market, a storm began in the distance. The girl looked back once at the empty cage. She didn't smile. But for the first time since her capture, she breathed easier. They said she was too fierce to be tamed. But the human who stepped forward didn't want to tame her. He wanted to understand why she still stood tall when the whole galaxy tried to break her. The ship lifted off from Gravos 9, leaving the slave markets behind. The stars outside. The window looked peaceful, but inside the small cargo ship the air was heavy with silence. The green-skinned girl sat in the corner, arms crossed, watching the human with sharp eyes. She still wore the ragged cloth and the blanket he gave her. Her white hair fell across her face, but she didn't move it. She hadn't spoken a word since they boarded. Jack Rayner piloted the ship quietly. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to talk. He just let her sit in her space. Food was left near her untouched. Water untouched. She was waiting for something. Maybe a test. He knew that look. He'd seen it in rescued soldiers, lost children, prisoners of war. The look that said, "I don't trust you, but I'm watching everything you do." After 3 hours, Jack finally spoke. "Name?" No reply. He tried again. "Do you have one?" She slowly looked up at him. "Not for you." He nodded. "Fair enough." She narrowed her eyes. "You didn't chain me. You're not a prisoner. Then why did you pay for me?" To get you out of that cage. What do you want, in return? Jack stood and walked over to her. He placed a small med kit and fresh clothes on the floor between them. I want nothing, he said calmly. Except for you to be okay. She stared at him. You're lying. No, I'm not. She didn't believe him, but she didn't attack either. Instead, she took the medkit and quietly began treating. A deep cut on her leg. Her fingers moved fast and trained like a soldier, Jack noticed. You've done that before. I don't answer questions. You don't have to. But I see things. You move like someone who's seen war. Her eyes flickered. He wasn't wrong. That night she lay awake while he slept near the controls. She studied him. No chains. No collars. No commands. Just space to breathe. It confused her. Scared her even. Because kindness was a language she had forgotten, and now this human was speaking it, without asking anything back. The next morning, she finally stood and walked to the cockpit. You're going to ask again, she said. Jack looked at her. Ask what? My name. Only if you want to tell me. There was a long pause. Then she whispered, Seyla. Jack nodded slowly. Thank you. She stood there for a moment waiting for something, but nothing came. No orders, no control, no jokes, just silence and respect. Where are you taking me? She asked. To a free zone on Arlen 4. You can disappear there. No chains, no hunters. And after that? Up to you. You're not coming, he looked at her. Only if you want me to. Her face showed no emotion, but something shifted in her eyes. She was trained to fight, sold to obey. But now, given freedom and no reason, she wonders what her fire is truly meant for, and why the human isn't afraid to get burned. The stars passed slowly outside the ship's windows, but inside the cockpit time felt heavier. Seyla hadn't spoken again since sharing her name. Jack Rayner didn't push her. He knew trust took time, especially for someone who had spent weeks in chains. She still didn't eat much, still watched every move, but she no longer flinched when he stepped near. That was something. Later that night, Jack caught her standing near the medkit again. She had removed the dirty cloth from her arm. Beneath it, scars, long, sharp, and too clean to be anything but control marks. They tracked you? Jack asked softly. Seyla didn't look up. They punished me. For what? For speaking. You don't have to answer. I killed the first one who tried to chain me. After that, they made an example of me. Her voice didn't shake, but her fingers tightened around the cloth. Jack said nothing, just quietly sat down a few steps away. They didn't expect you to survive, he said. I wasn't supposed to. A long silence. Then she turned to him, her green eyes dim in the ship's glow. Why did you really take me? Jack met her stare. Because you looked like you were still fighting, even inside that cage. I was. Then that means you're not broken. Just bruised. She sat across from him. You talk like you've seen cages too. I've seen war, Jack said. And I've seen what it does to people who don't deserve it. Seyla tilted her head. What did it do to you? He paused. It made me stop trusting orders and start trusting my gut. And your gut told you to save me? No, he said. My heart did. Seyla blinked. No one had ever said something like that to her, especially not a human. The next day, Jack showed her the star chart. We'll reach Arlen 4 in 2 days. She looked at the glowing map. And I can go where I want there? Anywhere. New name, new story, start over. And what about you? Jack smiled faintly. I'll go where I'm needed. Seyla studied his face. You don't belong in peace either, do you? Not yet. But I'd like to. That night she finally ate a full meal. She didn't thank him. But she didn't look at the door every 5 minutes anymore. She even slept. For the first time since he met her, she let her body rest, not as a prisoner, but as someone who might live to see tomorrow. Jack stayed up, watched over her, because in her silence, he'd seen more than pain. He'd seen someone who still had fire inside, and that fire was slowly learning to trust the one who dared walk beside it. She remembers every chain, every command, every scar. But now across cold stars and warm silences, a human's presence begins to melt the ice she built around her heart. The ship landed softly on Arlen 4, a neutral planet known for trade, refuge, and second chances. Its skies were silver blue, and its cities were made of glass and stone. No slave auctions here, no chains, just busy markets and open skies. Seyla stepped onto solid ground for the first time in months, maybe years. No guards, no cages, no orders, just the strange feeling of freedom. Jack Rayner walked beside her through the outer port. He pointed toward a street lined with small buildings, food stands, and wandering aliens. The safe zone's up there, no bounty hunters, no registrations, you'll be free to go anywhere. She didn't answer. There's a contact named Kira. She'll give you papers, clothes, credit tokens, whatever you need. Still, she stayed quiet. He paused. You okay? She looked around slowly. This doesn't feel real. It is. And you're just letting me go? Jack shrugged. That was always the plan. They reached a small rest station with an info terminal. Jack handed her a small bag. Inside were the credits, an ID chip, and a data pad with coordinates. She stared at it. This is enough to vanish. That's the idea. You don't even know who I am, she said. You told me your name. That's all I needed. Seyla gripped the bag. Her fingers shook a little, but she turned and walked away without another word. Jack watched her until she vanished into the crowd. Then he sat on a bench, exhaled, and closed his eyes. She's safe now. That's enough. 30 minutes passed. He didn't move, but something inside him felt heavy. He wasn't sure if it was sadness or hope. Then, footsteps, light ones. He opened his eyes. She was standing there again. Seyla looked different now. Clean clothes, hair brushed. No more chains, no more dirt. But her eyes, still the same flame. I thought you left, he said. I did. Then why are you back? She hesitated, then said softly, because I turned around, and you were still sitting here. Jack blinked. You didn't have to come back. I know. So? Why? She stepped closer. Because I've been running my whole life, and this is the first time I stopped, and someone didn't run from me. She handed him the data pad. I don't want to disappear. I want to matter. He looked at her. Then stay. She nodded. But not as a slave. Not as a burden. No, Jack said. As a partner. And in that quiet corner of Arlen 4, a new bond was made. Not with chains, but with choice. Not with fear, but with freedom. She walked away because she could, but she came back because someone finally stayed. Now the galaxy will learn what happens when a once-caged fire chooses to burn beside someone who never asked it to change. Seyla sat beside the small campfire on the edge of the Arlen 4 outpost. She wasn't used to stillness. Her hands were clean. Her body healed, but her heart still stirred like a storm. Something inside her didn't know how to rest. Not yet. Across the fire, Jack Rayner was fixing a tool from the ship. Quiet, focused, calm as always. That calm used to confuse her. Now, it made her feel safe. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable anymore, but it was heavy, like something was waiting to be said. Seyla finally looked up. You saved me, fed me, freed me. Jack paused. I didn't do it for thanks. I know, that's what makes it harder. She held the data pad in her lap, her ID chip. Her new name, She tapped it. They gave me this identity, but it doesn't feel like mine. It's a way to start over. Maybe I don't want to start over. Maybe I want to understand what I already am. Jack set the tool down. You already know who you are. No, I only know who I was forced to be. And now? Now. She hesitated. I want something real, not assigned, not controlled. She looked at him. What does your name mean, Jack? He blinked. Raynor? She nodded. Does it carry weight where you're from? It did, once. My father gave it meaning. Then I wore it like armor. Now it's just a name. She thought for a moment. Then give it to me. Jack raised an eyebrow. What? Not as ownership, she said quickly. Not like a mark. Like a gift. He was quiet. She continued. In my culture, names are shared only when someone means something, when they become part of your blood story. Jack looked into the fire. You sure you want that? Yes. He nodded slowly. Then, I give you my name. Raynor. Seyla's voice was soft. Seyla Raynor. She tried it again. And for the first time since they met, she smiled. Later that night, she stood by the ridge looking at the stars. Jack stepped beside her. You okay? Yes. For once, I think I am. You don't owe me anything. She shook her head. But I want to give you something. What? She stepped close. My real name, not the one the slavers forced on me. Jack waited. She whispered it. Tivanari. He repeated it softly. Tivanari. It means flame that endures the cold. Jack smiled. Fits you perfectly. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the past, not the future. Just a girl who once lived in chains. And the man who gave her a name she could finally call her own. They both lost something in the wars, but now one gave his name and the other gave her truth. Together they were building something no slaver, soldier, or storm could ever take away. Peace never lasts long when someone puts a price on your head. Seyla, now calling herself Tivanari Raynor, had spent the last 3 days walking freely, around Arlen 4's outer zone. With clean clothes and a name that belonged to her by choice, she had finally started to feel human again. Not prey. Not product. Not a weapon. But the past wasn't done with her yet. The sun was setting when she noticed the shadow. He was tall, covered in dark armor, eyes glowing faint red under a breathing mask. He leaned casually against a wall near the food stalls, but never looked away from her. Jack noticed, too. Someone watching you? Yes, she said quietly. And he's not the only one. By the time they returned to their ship, 2 more masked strangers appeared at the gates. No weapons drawn, but their posture screamed danger. Jack loaded his blaster. Seyla reached for a dagger hidden in her boot. Guess the slavers didn't appreciate you walking free, Jack muttered. That's not a slaver, she replied, her voice sharp. That's a bounty killer. How much are you worth? Too much. They didn't run. That would only make things worse. Instead, they waited in silence behind the ship's shield, until a voice came through the communicator. Low, distorted, mechanical. Tavanari, former Valari commander, property of the guild. Turn yourself, or your companion dies. Jack grinned coldly. They think I'm just a companion? You're human, she said. They underestimate you. Good. They made a plan. Jack rerouted the ship's power to the shields. Seyla hacked into the local security net, sending a silent warning to Arlen 4 patrols. Then she turned to him. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. You've done enough. Jack stepped closer. This isn't about what I've done. It's about what we're building together, and I'm not losing you. The attackers moved at nightfall. Quick. Silent. But Jack and Seyla were faster. In the first strike, she tackled one into the dust, snapping his weapon in 2, Jack fired clean shots into the other's armor joint, knocking him down before the alarm blared. One tried to run, only to be caught in a stun field Jack had wired minutes before. They stood together under the stars, heartbeats fast, sweat on their skin. Seyla looked down at the last attacker, now unconscious. Then she whispered, "He was my jailer." She didn't kill him. She walked away. Because she wasn't a slave anymore. She was Tivanari Raynor. And she chose mercy. They came for a slave. They found a soldier reborn and standing beside her, a human who had nothing to prove but everything to protect. The next morning, Seyla stood on the edge of the landing platform, wind tugging at her clean clothes and long silver hair. Arlen 4 was waking up, but her mind was back in that dark cage on Gravos 9, and the human man who refused to leave, her there. Behind her, Jack Raynor adjusted the controls on their ship. Repairs were complete. Their supplies were stocked. They could leave. But something inside her had already changed. She wasn't running anymore. "I thought freedom would feel lighter," she said without turning around. "Doesn't it?" Jack asked. "No," she said. "It feels heavier, because now I choose what kind of person I want to be." Jack smiled quietly. "That's what freedom really is." Suddenly, a signal lit up on the ship's screen. Jack walked over and tapped the console. A message, encrypted, anonymous, a warning. "The guild is offering triple bounty now," he muttered. "Not just for you, but for anyone helping you." Seyla stepped beside him. "So they finally know your name. Let them come. You're risking your life." Jack turned to her. "I already gave you my name. I can give you my life too. You just have to ask." Seyla looked into his eyes. "I don't want your life," she whispered. "I want your fight. You have it. Then let's stop running." They left Arlen 4 that evening, not as fugitives, but as fighters. They flew to the outer systems where slaves were still bought and sold, where rebellion was a whisper, where hope was just a story, and they made it real. In the weeks that followed, stories began to spread. About a green-skinned woman with fire in her voice and blades in her hands, about a human with no rank, no flag, but a heart no laser could burn. They freed transports, they exposed camps, they broke chains no one else dared touch. Some called them criminals, others called them heroes. But to those still waiting behind, as they were something more, a promise. One day, while resting on a cliff above a ruined outpost, Seyla asked, "Why me? Why did you risk everything?" Jack looked over the horizon and said, "Because you didn't ask for help. You dared to survive, and that told me you were worth saving. Even now? Especially now." Seyla took his hand. It wasn't soft. It was scarred like hers, but it was warm, and it held no chains, once feared, once caged. Now they were fire and steel, memory and mercy. One human, one alien, both untamed, both free, and together they would change the stars.